In the 1850s in Maryland, North America, one woman rose up to be one of the most successful leaders of the Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses that was used to help free slaves. The woman's name was Harriet Tubman. A former slave herself, she acted as a conductor, guiding escapees along the way. Harriet risked her life and freedom, travelling from the free country of the North back to the plantation where she was held captive in the South to help save her family and friends. All up, she made 19 trips and rescued about 300 slaves. Harriet was savvy, clever, resourceful, and bold. Her strategy was to rescue the slaves on the Saturday night so they would get a day and a half start before their absence was discovered. She would always travel at night, never took the same route, and often cleverly disguised herself as a man. Among the black population, she was nicknamed Moses because he was sent by God to free slaves. Harriet worked on the Underground Railroad for 8 years, and in her own words could say what few conductors could. "I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger." But there was one more secret to Harriet's success that set her apart. Harriet heard God's voice. Throughout her life, there's testimonies of God conversations of how she managed to help free the slaves. On one occasion, she heard the voice of God telling her to get off her escape route and go off-road towards a dangerous creek crossing. Harriet couldn't swim, and neither could the 3 slaves that were with her. She took steps into the creek as the creek bed went deeper down and down, until she got to the point where the water came up to her armpits and then to her neck. At that point, the slave said, "We can't go any further." But Harriet trusted the voice of God. She took one more step into the river, and lo and behold, the bank went back up again, and she was able to free and rescue those slaves. On another occasion, she heard God talk about her aging parents back in the plantation where she'd been freed from. They were in danger of being sold on to another place, and she needed to go now to rescue them. So she listened to the voice of God, and that's what she did. On another occasion, God spoke to her in a dream. He said, "Harriet, you're going to see the end of slavery in your lifetime." 3 years later, Abraham Lincoln declared the Emancipation Proclamation that set slaves free. As God said, she lived to see the day. In her later years, Harriet continued to help slaves that were freed, to help them adjust to a new life. She fought for women's rights, and she helped the elderly and the homeless. Her heart for God, always the same. Harriet was uneducated. She couldn't read. She was overworked. She was underpaid. She died in poverty. But she knew what it meant to hear God's voice and to trust it. In fact, one leading abolitionist said of her, "I've known no other who had such confidence in the voice of God." Harriet's testimony reminds me of Abraham in Scripture, who heard the voice of God and believed it, believed that God had power to do what he had promised. Harriet heard the voice of God, the one who was committed to helping save others too. And because Harriet had her own God conversations, she was able to join God's rescue mission, God's salvation plan, to help others who were in need. Her life and story sets an example for us all to follow. We're all called to hear the voice of God, to trust it throughout the difficulties and the challenges when the creeks get too deep and it looks like we're in danger, to take risks and to step into those places of rescue where people need our help, to listen to God's voice and to follow, and know that as we do, we're going to see the faithfulness of God, miracles unfolding in our lives and our communities being blessed. Thanks so much for listening today to Everyday God Conversations. If you'd like to learn more about having your own God conversation, you can go to godconversations.com.